My parents gave my apartment to my brother's family. Now they expect me to pay rent while I sleep in a storage closet. Hey everyone, I never imagined I'd be sharing something like this, but here we are. A friend suggested I post this for an outside perspective, and I could really use one. My name is Alex, and I'm 26. It feels like I've been the one holding my family together for as long as I can remember. Growing up, I was always the responsible one. Good grades, chores done, never in trouble. My younger brother Ryan, however, seemed to get the favorite label early on, and it stuck. He's 2 years younger, and while I was doing everything right, he was being coddled. I'm talking better Christmas presents, more patience when he messed up, and generally less pressure. Don't get me wrong, I love my brother, but it was always clear he was my parents' favorite. Fast forward to adulthood, and not much has changed. I've had steady jobs since I was old enough to work, starting in landscaping and working my way up to my current role as a project manager at a tech company. It's not glamorous, but it's stable, and I've always been good at saving and managing my finances. Ryan, on the other hand, chose a different path. He always wanted to be his own boss, which sounds great in theory, but it led to a string of disastrous ventures. His last business, a small electronics repair shop, shut down about a year ago, leaving him in a tough spot. Ryan is married to Jenna, 24, and they have 2 young kids, Ethan and Sophie. They're adorable, and I've always tried to be the cool uncle when I could. But let's be real, raising kids is expensive, and Ryan and Jenna haven't been great with money. I get it, times are tough for everyone. What I didn't get was how my parents decided to handle their problem. For a few years now, I've been renting the basement apartment in my parents' house. It's a good setup, my own entrance, a small kitchen, and enough space to live comfortably without feeling like an intruder. I pay rent and contribute to groceries and other household costs as needed. Everything was fine until about a year ago, when Ryan's shop closed. At first he and Jenna tried to manage on their own. They moved into a smaller apartment and started cutting back, but it wasn't enough. I knew their finances were tight, so I tried to help by buying diapers occasionally and offering to babysit when they needed a break. However, my help seemed insufficient. Ryan's habit of misprioritizing things made matters worse. I once gave them money for groceries, only to see Jenna showing off a new designer bag on social media the very next day. I'm not sure what their priorities were, but they certainly weren't on essentials. One day I got home from work to find my parents waiting for me in the kitchen. My mom's "we need to talk" face is never a good sign. She started, "Alex, we need to talk about Ryan and Jenna." That's when I knew something was up. They wasted no time telling me that Ryan and his family were moving into the basement apartment, my basement apartment, and I'd be moving into the hobby room. To be clear, the hobby room is a small cluttered space on the main floor where my mom keeps her sewing machine, fabric piles, and various Christmas decorations. It's not exactly habitable. I was stunned. What? How am I supposed to live in the hobby room? I was completely confused. My dad, always a man of few words, simply said, "It's the only thing that makes sense. They have kids, Alex. They need the space more than you do." I tried to stay calm, but it wasn't easy. "I pay rent here," I explained. "That's my apartment." My mom's response was typical. "It's our house, Alex, and as a family, we need to do what's best for everyone." Essentially, their logic was that because it was their house, my contributions, rent, expenses, help, didn't seem to matter. Ryan's needs came first, no questions asked. I wanted to argue, but it was clear their minds were made up. My mum was already talking about how they'd cozied up the hobby room for me, as if a pillow and blanket would miraculously fix everything. My dad just sat there, seemingly uninterested in further discussion. The worst part was they didn't even ask for my input. They made a decision, and I was expected to fall in line. It didn't take long for things to spiral once they moved Ryan and his family into the basement. I tried to keep my head down and deal with it, but everything felt like a reminder that I wasn't even a priority in my own family. The move happened so fast it was like I lived in the basement one day and was kicked out the next. Ryan and Jenna didn't waste time settling in. Toys, baby gear, and their cooking supplies arrived in a flurry of boxes, strollers, and general chaos. Meanwhile, I was stuck trying to fit my entire life into the hobby room. Let me tell you, calling it a room is generous. It's more of a glorified storage closet with just enough space for a twin bed, no windows, no proper door, and zero privacy. I tried so hard to make it work, but every day I felt like an afterthought. Ryan and Jenna moved in like they owned the place, and my parents pretended everything was fine, as if I hadn't been shunted into a closet. When I got home from work, There were toys everywhere. The kitchen was a mess, and there was no sense of personal space. Sometimes, there was barely any food left for me. I was trying to stay calm and ignore the small things, but everything was building up inside me, starting to affect my focus and productivity at work. So, the next day I tried to talk to my parents about it. Look, I get that Ryan and Jenna are going through a hard time, I complained, but this isn't fair. I pay rent, I help out, and now I'm stuck in a storage room while they get the whole basement. My dad didn't even look up from his phone. It's only temporary, he mumbled. How temporary? I asked. As long as they need. My mum replied simply, as if that explained everything, and that was it. No negotiation, no acknowledgement of how unfair this was. Just a vague promise that things might change eventually. To make matters worse, Ryan didn't seem to appreciate what he was given. I couldn't help but feel bitter when I heard him and Jenna bickering late at night about money, the kids, or whatever. I was giving up my space so they could have a roof over their heads, yet they couldn't even get along. One night I overheard them arguing about Ryan splurging on jewelry for Jenna, saying he wanted to cheer her up, despite the fact they hadn't refilled the kids' formula. It made me wonder why I was helping at all. I came home one day to find my nephew Ethan playing. In my room, he'd gotten into one of the fabric bins my mum had stored there and was pulling out spools of thread like they were toys. "Look, Uncle Alex," he exclaimed, holding up a tangled ball of yarn. "Hey buddy," I said softly, trying to stay calm. "This isn't a playroom, okay? Can you go back downstairs?" "Alex, don't be so harsh." My mother overheard, rushing in to rescue Ethan as if I'd just scolded him for breathing. "He's just a kid." "I know he's a kid," I told her, "but this is my space. What little of it I have." She just gave me the look that suggested I was being unreasonable and led Ethan out. Without another word. It wasn't just the kids though. Ryan and Jenna seemed to forget I was still living there. Ryan didn't bother buying anything when we ran out of groceries, which happened faster than usual with kids in the house. The truth is, I don't blame the kids. They're just kids, and they don't know any better. But what about Ryan and Jenna? They should have been bending over backward to show gratitude. Instead, it felt like they saw me as an extra roommate who was just there to pick up the slack. A few weeks later, things escalated. I was working from home, which was already difficult in that tiny space, and the noise from downstairs was unbearable. I could hear the kids running around, Ryan yelling about something, and Jenna chatting on the phone loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. At that point I snapped. I marched downstairs and shouted, "Can you guys please keep it down? I'm trying to work up there." Ryan gave me a shocked look, as if I'd asked something outrageous. "It's not like we're doing it on purpose," he said. "What do you expect with 2 kids?" "I expect a little consideration," I retorted. "I gave up my apartment for you. The least you could do is not make it impossible for me to do my job." That's when my mother stepped in to play referee. "Alex, don't start a fight," she said. "They're doing the best they can." I couldn't believe it. I was the one who had been displaced, the one who had gone above and beyond to accommodate everyone else. And yet, I was the one causing trouble. That night, I realized I couldn't do this anymore. My parents clearly weren't going to stand up for me. Ryan and Jenna weren't going to change. And as long as I stayed, I'd only be pushed further into the background. The next day, I started looking for a place to stay. I couldn't afford to move out entirely due to the high cost of rent, but I did find an inexpensive motel that offered short-term stays. It wasn't fancy, but it had everything I needed. Most importantly, peace and quiet. I booked it for a week to clear my head and plan my next steps. That evening, I packed my belongings and sat down with my parents in the living room to explain my plans. My mother's face immediately contorted in displeasure as soon as I mentioned leaving. "Leaving? What do you mean, leaving?" she asked, crossing her arms. "I'm going to stay somewhere else for a while," I said, trying to keep my tone even. I need some space to think and figure things out." My father scoffed. "What's there to figure out? Your brother's family needs the basement, and we need you to pitch in for the house. You can't just walk away from your responsibilities." "My responsibilities," I countered. "The only responsibility I had was paying for my own space, and you gave that away without even asking me. Now you want me to stick around and pay for a house I'm barely allowed to exist in. Are you serious?" Mum gave an exasperated sigh. "It's not about that. It's about family. We all have to make sacrifices sometimes." "Sacrifices," I said, my voice rising. "I've been sacrificing for years, paying rent, buying groceries, bailing you out whenever there's an emergency, and what do I get in return? A closet and a pat on the back for being such a good sport." Mom's tone shifted. Well, if that's how you feel, maybe it's for the best that you take a little time away. But don't be gone too long. You know we're counting on you. Counting on me, I yelled. For what? To keep enabling Ryan's bad decisions. To keep cleaning up messes I didn't make. No, I'm done. Before they could respond, I stormed out, slamming the door behind me. My hands shook as I got into my car. The first few days at the motel were blissful. No screaming children, no dirty dishes, and no passive-aggressive comments from my mother. I felt like I could truly breathe. However, the peace didn't last long. On the third day, I got a text from my mother. Alex, where's the money for rent and groceries? We're counting on it to help Ryan and the kids. I stared at my phone, bewildered. I wasn't even living there anymore. Yet she expected me to contribute. I called her immediately. Mum, I'm not even at the house right now. Why would I pay rent? Her remark was exactly what I expected because we're family. Alex, Ryan and Jenna need that space, and they can't afford it on their own. You know how tight things are for us. I couldn't hold back. Tight for you. You kicked me out of my own apartment without asking, and now you expect me to keep paying for it. That's insane. She passed the phone to my father, who wasted no time laying into me. This is typical of you, Alex. Always thinking about yourself. Your brother is struggling, and all you can do is complain. Have some decency. Before I could react, I heard Ryan's voice in the background. Let me talk to him, Alex. Ryan said, you don't get it. You don't have kids. You don't know what it's like to have mouths to feed and bills piling up. We're family. You're supposed to help. I lost it. You're right, Ryan. I don't have kids. But I also don't expect everyone else to fix my problems for me. You're not my responsibility, and neither is your family. The call ended with my mother crying, my father calling me selfish, and Ryan muttering something about how I'd regret it. After the argument over rent and groceries, everything stayed quiet for a few days. Quiet, but not calm. You know that feeling when you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop? That's where I was. I knew my family wouldn't let me off the hook. A few days later, I received a text from my mother. We're having a family meeting Sunday. Everyone will be there. It's important. Now, when my mother says family meeting, it's never actually a meeting. It's more like an ambush. I knew this was going to be a group attack on me, but a part of me hoped this was an opportunity to explain my perspective. On Sunday, I walked into the living room to see not only my parents and Ryan, but also my aunts, uncles, and a number of cousins. It was like a mini family reunion, but the atmosphere was anything but cheerful. Everyone was seated in a circle, and as soon as I walked in, I felt the judgment. Alex, we're all here because we're worried about you, my mother said, using her concerned parent voice. Worried about me? I asked, taking a seat. What exactly are you worried about? My father jumped in. Your behavior lately. It's not like you, Alex. You're acting weird. Weird, of course. That was the word they used if I didn't do exactly what they wanted. Weird, I said. For not wanting to pay for a house I don't live in, for being upset that you kicked me out of my own apartment without asking. Alex, we're family, my mother responded, as if that clarified everything. Family sticks together, and right now Ryan needs our help. That's when Ryan decided to chime in. I understand this has been difficult for you, he added, trying to sound reasonable, but you don't understand what it's like to have kids. Ethan keeps asking why you don't visit anymore. Do you want me to tell him his uncle doesn't care about him? I swear I felt my blood pressure rise. Are you serious, Ryan? You're going to use your kid to guilt-trip me now? How about you tell him the truth, that I'm tired of being treated like an ATM and a doormat? Alex, my mother exclaimed, shocked. That's uncalled for. Uncalled for? I inquired, turning to her. What's uncalled for is the way you've treated me. I've been paying rent here for years. I've helped out with groceries, bills, whatever you needed. And the one time I asked for a little respect, I'm the bad guy. How is that fair? My aunt decided to join in at this point. Alex, you've always been the responsible one. Your parents count on you because they know you'll step up. But this attitude of yours, it's not who you are. I wanted to laugh. Responsible, sure, but that didn't mean I wanted to be the family's punching bag forever. Being responsible doesn't mean letting people walk all over me, I told them. And that's exactly what's been happening. You all act like I owe Ryan and Jenna something just because they've got kids. But where were all of you when I needed help? Oh right, you were busy, telling me to step up. The room fell silent for a moment, but then my father spoke up. This isn't about the past, Alex, it's about right now. Your brother is struggling, and we're trying to hold the family together. Why can't you see that? Because no one asked me, I exclaimed. You didn't come to me and say, hey, Alex, we're in a tough spot. Can we figure something out? No, You just decided that my life didn't matter as much as Ryan's. You didn't give me a choice. At this moment my mother began to cry, which was her go-to reaction when things didn't go her way. I just don't understand how you can be so cold, she told me. We raised you better than this. You raised me to put everyone else first. I told her, and look where it has gotten me, living in a storage room while Ryan and Jenna take over my space, using my groceries, and expecting me to continue paying for them. How is that fair? Ryan attempted to jump in again, but I cut him off. Ryan, let me ask you something. When you had your shop, did you ever help Mum and Dad with bills? Did you ever pitch in for groceries or anything else? He appeared uneasy. That's different, he muttered. Oh, it's different, I shot back, because I can't count how many times I've helped you out with money just for you to blow it on something stupid, like when I bought groceries for your family and Jenna magically ended up with a new designer bag the next day, or when you were late on rent and you still found a way to get her a spa gift card. Do you even realize how insulting that is? Ryan's cheeks turned scarlet, but he had no response. No, it's not, I replied. You didn't help out while you were doing well, but now that you're struggling, everyone wants me to make up the difference. I'm finished. I'm not going to pay another penny for that house. If you need money, handle it like a grown-up. My mother burst into tears, and my father looked at me as if I had insulted the family name. You're tearing this family apart, she added, sobbing. No, I replied, standing up. You did that when you decided Ryan was more important than me. I walked out of the house without saying anything else. As I got into my car, my phone started vibrating with texts from cousins and aunts, all telling me I was selfish and immature. I didn't even bother reading them. After the so-called family gathering, I chose to keep my distance for a bit. I didn't block anyone, but I did stop responding to their calls and texts. I needed some time to think about my future actions without the constant guilt trips and manipulations. At first it worked. After a few weeks, my phone was still vibrating with the occasional "Alex, call us," or "Why won't you talk to us?" message. I generally ignored them. I even started to feel a little lighter, as if I could finally focus on myself for once. But then my mum did something unexpected. She contacted my job. I found out about it when my manager approached me during a break. Hey, Alex, he began, looking embarrassed. We had a call from someone claiming to be your mother. She said you're dealing with some family issues and might need some time off. I just stared at him, completely surprised. What? No, I didn't ask for time off, and I'm not sure why she called. Well, I suspected that would be the case, my manager answered, trying to be empathetic. But she left a rather detailed note. She mentioned something about your sibling and housing troubles. I was mortified. My personal life, which I had worked so hard to keep separate from work, was now exposed because of my mother. That evening I called her. What the hell were you thinking, Mum? I was worried about you, she replied, her tone guarded. You haven't been answering our calls, and I thought maybe you needed help. So, you thought calling my supervisor was the answer? I yelled. Do you realize how unprofessional that makes me look? I didn't mean to embarrass you, she began, her voice trailing off. I just wanted them to understand what you're going through. What I'm going through is because of you, I stated bluntly. You kicked me out of my house, ignored everything I said at the family meeting, and are now interfering with my employment. Enough is enough, Mum. Stay out of my professional life. She didn't take it well. She started crying again and handed the phone to my father, who inevitably labeled me selfish and ungrateful. Your mum was trying to help, he told me. You don't have to treat her like this. I wouldn't have to say anything if she hadn't crossed the line, I explained. This isn't okay, Dad. None of this is acceptable. But it didn't end there. The next day, I started receiving messages from extended family members, cousins, aunts, and even people I hadn't spoken to in years. Ryan had apparently resorted to social media to air our dirty laundry, and while he didn't name me directly, the posts were definitely about me. Real families step up when it matters, one message read. Some people only care about themselves, even when their own blood is struggling. The responses were filled with sympathy for Ryan. Stay strong, a commenter said. You're doing the best you can, and that's all that matters. You don't need toxic people in your life. Another added, toxic, that's what I was initially. I tried to ignore it, but the more I scrolled, the angrier I became. Ryan was out here playing the victim, painting me as some heartless villain, and no one, not a single person, was asking for my side of the story. I considered responding, publishing my own version of events, but I knew it wouldn't make a difference. The people who commented on his posts had already made up their minds, and I didn't want to make this a public spectacle. Instead, I chose to call Ryan immediately. What the hell is wrong with you? I asked as soon as he picked up. What are you talking about? He said, your social media posts. Ryan, don't act dumb. You're bashing me on social media. And for what? Because I don't want to pay for your life anymore. I didn't name you, he responded defensively. If people assume it's about you, that's not my fault, Ryan. Cut the crap. We both know what you're doing, I said. If you have an issue with me, say it to my face. Stop hiding behind Facebook. Do you believe I don't have the right to vent? He shot back. Alex, you've left us hanging. We are family, and you just walked away. I walked away because you, Mom, and Dad forced me out, I said, raising my voice. You don't get to shame me into solving your problems. Ryan, you're a grown man. Act like it. The call ended about as well as you'd expect. He hung up on me, and I realized that all possibility of saving our relationship was gone. However, Ryan chose to escalate the situation. After that call, I returned home from work and found him sitting on the steps outside my apartment, his car parked at the curb. What are you doing here, Ryan? I inquired, trying to keep my voice low. I needed to see you. I can't believe we're here, he said, standing up. You're really just abandoning all of us. Do you think you're superior to everyone else? I sighed, already exhausted by the conversation I knew was coming. Ryan, I am not abandoning anyone. I'm only setting boundaries. I can't keep doing this, paying for everything and sacrificing my own life while you and Mum treat me as an afterthought, he repeated, his voice rising. Do you even hear yourself? I have been going through hell. Alex, I lost my job. I have 2 children to feed, and Mum and Dad are barely getting by. And now you're acting like you're the victim because we need some assistance. It's not just a little help, Ryan, I screamed. You took my space without asking, and now you're trying to shame me into staying connected despite everything you've put me through. I've been helping this family for years. Where were you when Mom and Dad needed money for their mortgage? Or when I was working extra hours just to cover groceries? He shook his head, obviously frustrated. You don't understand, Alex. You've always had it easy. No children, no real responsibilities. I cut him off. Don't, please don't. I've carried this family on my back for years, while you wasted money on unnecessary purchases. And now you want me to feel bad because I finally said, enough is enough. Ryan's face twisted in rage. You make me out to be the bad guy here, but I'm the one who's struggling. I am the one trying to keep my family together. Meanwhile, you sit here with your nice little life, acting as if you're too good to help. I stared at him, trying to keep my fury at bay. You don't get to do this, Ryan. You can't act like I owe you just because I worked hard and made better decisions. This isn't about not caring about you. It's about learning to care about myself. He appeared to be about to strike me for a split second before shaking his head. You have changed, Alex. You are not the person I thought you were. Maybe I've just stopped being the person you could walk all over, I remarked with a frown. Ryan didn't respond. He turned and walked back to his car, slamming the door as he got in. That night, I sat in my apartment, replaying the argument over and over, knowing I couldn't keep doing this. It wasn't just about the basement or the rent. It was about the ongoing disrespect and entitlement. That night, I texted my parents, I love you, but I can't continue living like this. I will no longer contribute to the rent or food. I'm also taking some time away from my family. Please respect my decision and do not contact me unless it is critical. I hit send and blocked their numbers. It wasn't easy, but I knew I had to do it. Predictably, my cousins, aunts, and uncles bombarded me with texts accusing me of being selfish and abandoning my family. Ryan, of course, was the loudest, and he began spreading lies about me to the family, claiming that I had been hoarding money, living extravagantly, and had left him and my parents in financial ruin. At one point, I learned from a mutual acquaintance that Ryan had attempted to call my boss to warn them about how untrustworthy I was. It was petty and nasty, but thankfully my manager saw through the foolishness and shut it down. A few months later, Ryan's bitterness and poor choices finally caught up with him. He had burned so many bridges in his desire to retaliate against me that even his extended family began to distance themselves from him. Meanwhile, his lack of financial planning reached a new low. I heard through the grapevine that he and Jenna were evicted from the house they had moved into when my parents were unable to pay the mortgage. Ryan's antics began to undermine his own life, and Jenna, fed up with his behavior and unwilling to continue scraping by, took the kids and left. He was left without a job, no family support, and nowhere to live. When I found out, I'd be lying if I claimed I felt pity for him. After everything he'd put me through, his obsession with vengeance had just gotten him further into trouble. Cutting ties with my family was difficult for me, but it turned out to be the best decision I'd ever made. I moved to a new apartment, focused on my career, and even started going to therapy to work through years of resentment.